Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hugo and today I'll bring you the rest of the books that I've read in 2020 that didn't make into the best or the most disappointing videos. So basically all the other books that I've read that are not on those videos. The videos will be linked up here and down below if you want to check it, my best and my most disappointed books. This is going to be a long video, so I'll be splitting in at least 2 parts. Let's start. In January I only read one book and you will see why, because it's a monster, and it was It by Stephen King. This is the Portuguese edition. It's divided in 2 parts. We have the first part and the second part. I love the covers. The covers are beautiful. I've read it in January. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't the best for me. There are some parts that are very chunky and very philosophical and heavy in historical context that I didn't thought it was important, and it breaks a lot of the action because sometimes it happens between actions and you're like, ugh! And then stops and you have historical context and you're like, can I skip this because I want to continue to see if they die? But definitely one of the best masterpieces of Stephen King. I loved how in the end we'll get some of the chapters from the voice of the creature. I wanted to know more about her, check more about the universe that she comes from. But yeah, this was on my first reads of 2020. The next book I want to show you, it's the final of the Incred trilogy, and it's Incred. You saw that ink spell made into my most disappointed books of 2020 because I feel it's sort of just a connection between the first one and this one. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I think it was very well written as always. I love the edition on these books because each chapter has a quote from a book and it has a title. I really love that. I think this was a great conclusion for the series. I definitely recommend if you're looking for a YA, middle grade YA fantasy book. There's a very fast pace. The chapters are very small. You'll get a lot of amazing characters here. I really like one of the arcs of the characters, the side characters, and one of the main I wasn't much a fan, but yeah, a solid 4 stars. The next book was for the International Day of Theatre, and it was Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Edward Albee. I gave it 5 stars. I totally love the play. I love plays, I love theater, and I loved the movie with Elizabeth Taylor. I love the play. I think the play plays with a lot of interesting topics. I love the dynamic between George and Martha. I love how Edward Albee explored those feelings and those resentments between them. I totally recommend if you're looking for a play that deals with secrets and with resentment. If you're looking for some couple interact, see how the time affects a couple and a couple's life, I totally recommend this one. I give it 5 stars. I already said that, but definitely you should check it. Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. The other book I read and didn't make my final cut was Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I didn't give it 4 stars for the simple part of the beginning is very slow. Middle to the end was amazing. I loved it. Greatest villain, greatest plot twists, amazing. Totally loved it. The beginning was very slow. I wasn't captivated to read so much, but I forced myself a little bit because I knew it will be amazing by the end. But that beginning I think didn't build up to me so much, so I only could give it 4 stars. But it's definitely, if you love plot twists, if you love a good villain, a good psychopath, definitely check out Gone Girl if you haven't checked it yet. It was a reread for me, and I reread it between I was reading the Mortal Instrument series, because both series are 6 books, and also I was reading one Mortal Instrument, one of the series, one of the Mortal Instruments, and then I give up a little bit on the Mortal Instruments and I finished this one. But I only finished the first 3 because I was afraid to jump into the rest of the series because it comes up after and it's not follow the same characters. But I'm talking about the Selection series by Kira Cass. I read this series when I was a teen, I think, beginning of college, and I really enjoy it. And now in rereading, I still enjoy it. I think it's you cannot go with the idea of being a dystopian because it's not a dystopian, but it's definitely a very funny and romantic story. I think it's very easy to read there. I read them each book in a day. It was a very fast reading. I think America is very funny. Some of the situations, I think the love triangle makes sense. I didn't give it 5 stars because I don't think it's a 5-star reading, but it's definitely a 4 stars. About this next book I have a lot to talk about, and it's Memoirs of Cleopatra. The Portuguese edition, as you can see up here, it's divided in 3 volumes. And I read the first one, which follows Cleopatra from her young age till the death of Julius Caesar when she escaped Rome and come back to Egypt. as you can see, I mark a lot of parts on the book, historical fiction, historical parts, quotes. I have everything here. I really enjoy. I love Egypt. I love the historic aspect, the gods and everything. Cleopatra is definitely one of the most interesting characters to read about. I know it's Jojo's favorite book. Also, she really loved it. I'm planning to finish the series this year, but yeah, I really enjoy it. I think I gave it 5 stars. I'm not sure. I'll put all the stats, all the ratings here, but I think I gave it 5 stars because I really enjoy historical fiction, and Cleopatra is one of my favorite characters. Then I finished an audiobook, and it was What If It's Us by Becky Albertelli and Adam Silvera. I gave it 5 stars, but I couldn't include on the best compared to Red, White, and Royal Blue. I like it more. I had a few problems with this, especially with the end and with, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Arthur has ADHD and Ben has some alerts that I got. He could have ADHD, and Arthur just blamed it and didn't thought about he could have the same thing that I have, and they didn't explore that. They just said, "Oh, Arthur has ADHD," but they didn't explore a little bit. And knowing someone who has that, I know some symptoms. I know some problems people can have with memory, with schedules, and I think it could be explored in a different way and could explain some of the problems Ben has at school. But I really enjoyed it. I think it was a very cute romance. I love the part they try to find each other and how they miss each other easily, and I was like, please meet. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, some of the parts were a little bit scratchy. I think I really love to see the two voices. I think they complemented very well. And the different types of families they have. Knowing there is a sequel coming out, I'm excited to see how they're gonna move this series and see what they reserve to us. Another book I read in 2020 was The Murder on Links by Agatha Christie. This is a Poirot novel. I think it's the second one. I love Agatha Christie's writing style. I read and then they were done. I was obsessed with that book. I couldn't put it down in 2019, and I really enjoy The Murder on the Links. It follows Poirot. He's very bored, and then he receives a letter asking for help. Someone thinks he's gonna die and is in trouble. And when he arrives, he finds the person who sends him the letter is found dead. So he tries to see why and who murdered him. We have a lot of mysteries and a lot of small suspects and mysteries to unveil. I think Hastings is is a funny character to follow because he's very sometimes lightheaded, and Poirot has to sit and say, use your gray mass, think about the things. I really loved it. I think I didn't guess the end, so I think that's good. I keep on reading for a mystery. It's not fast, but it's captivating enough so you keep reading, and I really enjoy it. I gave it 5 stars also. Another one was also a YA contemporary, and it's The Upside of Failing by Alex Light. I give it 4 stars, but I really loved it. I was going to work, I was laughing on the street because the scenario is brilliant. You have Becca and Brett. So Becca is a bookworm. She's very smart, but she doesn't believe so much in love, except on the books she read, which are very romantic ones. She has a troubled past with her father leaving her mother, not caring about her, so she doesn't believe in love. And during a discussion in English class with her former best friend about Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, she says she has a boyfriend. And of course the ex-best friend says, then who is? And it comes Brett to rescue her, the popular jock guy in school, and says, I'm her boyfriend, and kisses her. And they start fake dating. For Becca's side, it's to prove her best friend she has a boyfriend, and from his side is because he follows his father's dreams of football, of having a fantastic life, because his father gave up everything he wanted to raise him. He lives for the expectation of his father, for football, for girlfriend. It's also a way to please him. What I really enjoy about this book was the relationship we have from fake dating to real dating will come not as a surprise of that moment usually is. I look at her and I feel something different and I think I love her. No, here we have them building a friendship first, and the friendship showing their favorite places, their favorite spots, sharing intimacy, problems and memories. They bond really, and it's not a rush thing. They fall in love. It's a very progressive, and I think it was shown very well. I think it also addressed some issues about the grief of losing someone you really like, or not having a parent present, or having your parent as a hero and he let you down for something. It has some important topics, and I totally enjoyed it. It was an amazing read. The audiobook is very well narrated. Another book that I picked up in 2020 was A Change of Heart by Jodi Picoult. This was part of Doris and Sandra's project, later Jodi Picoult. And in this one, we have Shay, who is a prisoner, he's in death row, and he starts to doing some miracle stuff. And he says he wants to donate his heart to a little girl. Surprise, surprise, he's a perfectly match for that heart. The thing is, he's condemned for killing a cop and a girl who were that little girl's father and sister. So the mother has the double question is, allow Sean to give her heart and die in a way from hanging to preserve the heart, or have the revenge for her husband and her daughter, her old daughter, and not saving her youngest daughter. The thing about this book is involves some of the magic realism that can maybe not come for the contemporary, but it goes very deep on what you believe and how do you choose, if you choose the revenge, if you choose the healing part, if you choose to let your young daughter live with the heart of a murderer. And the plot twist in the end is not predictable. I didn't thought about that. I was really surprised, but I really enjoy it. Another book I read in 2020 was A Simple Truth by Jodi Picoult. Follow a Hamish community as a newborn appeared dead in a farm. They have to discover that it was an Amish girl who was the mother, and she has to go to trial to prove that she didn't kill the baby and everything that happened. So the interesting part of this book is you have someone from the normal world getting into Amish community and learn about the costumes, about how they believe in their lives, not having electricity, but sometimes if it's a term of life and death, you can have electricity. They talk about that. I thought the end for a first read is not predictable. For a second read, I was more attentive in some details, and I got some details that can send you for the end, but I still really enjoy it. You get an insight on the Amish community, which I think is very important, and it's not a topic so much to talk about. I love to learn more about the Amish community. The next book I want to talk about is one from my new favorite author. I got a new book from him that I bought in a used bookstore here. I pre-ordered his first standalone novel, which sounds very interesting. The book I want to talk about is What Remains by Tim Weaver. Tim Weaver is a British author, and he has this series from David Rackard, from this detective. He's not a very detective, he's a missing person detective, so he tracks missing people and try to return them to their houses. And in this one we follow him as he tries to find the killer from an open case and tries to find one of his friends that you met in some other novels, I think, and as his life goes down from the problems he has. I think I gave it 5 stars. I think it's a great book. I think you don't need to read the other ones to get into this one. I think you can read as a separate part, but if you want to get into some of David and other characters' life, I think you should read it as a series, but you can read it perfectly alone as I did. I think the story is very well produced. The pacing is correct. I keep reading. Spent times when I was in the train, I was like, the train stopped and I was in my station, which is the last one, so I was saved. But I arrived and I said, already? But I started the book like 10 minutes ago. I don't believe it. And I skipped like 50 pages per ride. It was a very good reading. I still enjoy it. I think the twists will come and you won't expecting them. The whole idea behind this, it's very well done. If you want to look for a mystery and a detective story, this one is very good. Now let's talk about a series as a whole, and this is you cannot see the Vampire Academy series by Rachel Matt. I've read the whole series, but just for sake of showing one, I've read this in high school, I think, and I really enjoy it, but I read it in Portuguese from Brazil. I wasn't still reading in English. This is a YA fantasy story. I know people have some issues with some of the things that are despicable here because you have a teacher-student relationship, which in my opinion, I think it's not bad in the way it is because he doesn't force him on her. He tries to avoid her and he tries to separate things, and then till a point they can. The gap, people can say it has a big gap difference, but there are people who are in love and have a gap difference of 10 years, even 20 years. I didn't find that a problem. I think the series is a very interesting one. I think the whole idea of two types of empires, you have the ones with magic, the ones who protect, the bad ones. I think it's very well done. I think there are some plot conveniences, a lot of them. The thing that it really irritates me is the recap. The second one, the third one, I think the fourth one, it stops a little bit on that, but it has a lot of recaps. You find a character that appears in the first book, he has a recap of who that person was, who is the magic. I know that it was published as a series, so it has some time between them, but for me as a reader now, it didn't make sense to have so much recaps. And even if it was spacing in time, you can recap the first one. You can recap, if you are recapping the third one, the fourth one, you have to assume your readers read the series and remember things and just recap what is important, and you things you can miss, not important things like what is a Moroi, what is a vampire. The important things the persons will remember, and if don't remember, they will check the other books, they will reread them. I think that is the biggest negative that I have to say. But I think Rose, it's a very interesting character. It's a very fun to follow her. I like sassy characters. I love when a character is very sassy and very likes to very much play with the rules. Still enjoy the series. Now, passing from a YA fantasy to a classic, we have Mildred Pierce by J.M. Cain. You have a movie with John Crawford, which I think it's in the 30s, 40s, and you have the HBO series with Kate Winslet. So we follow Mildred Pierce as she divorced her husband and tries to live up her life, but she lives up very much for her older daughter, Veda, who wants to be very fancy and very rich and try to be very elegant, and she mistreats a lot of Mildred's experts because she opens a diner, she works as a waitress, so we have a lot of the prejudice that her own daughter has for her mother when her mother is trying to do everything she can to give her what she wants. I think James Cain's style is very fluid, is very good, is very interesting. The only thing that confused me was sometimes the pass of time, because you don't put dates, you don't put how much time it passed, and sometimes can be confusing if Fed is still a child, if it's a young adult, if it's already an adult. Can be a little bit confusing on that point, and because he goes back and forth on time, on memories and events. But I think this book is a very fascinating book and a very fascinating story about how deeply a mother's love can go for a daughter, and even when a daughter is not the best, how a mother will love unconditionally. I really enjoyed it. I think James Cain is a great author, and I will check more of his works on the future. Now let's back to fantasy, and we'll be with Aragon by Christopher Paolini. This would be a crime for me by now, but I never read Aragon, and the reason was I never had the whole series, and I typically like to start a series with all the books, because if I enjoy them and I don't have the possibility to have them, it starts to get me frustrating. So I like to binge the series, and I know I never thought of reading Aragon till this year, and I was like, I never read Aragon, so let's give it a try, and I really enjoy it. I gave it 5 stars. I think it's a great story. I love the magic system. I love Saphira. I love Aragon. It goes with some of the cliches of The Chosen One, but I think it's a very interesting, and it's not a fast pace. I tend to say fast pace because it's not a bad thing, but it's not a heavy book that you tend to slow burn and slow read. It's a fast pace. You can read a lot and don't feel tired, and you feel exciting to read. I thought the end was very good, and it's one on my list to continue this year, so I'll definitely try to finish not the series, but maybe till half, because the books after this are very thick. And It will take me a couple of times, but I really enjoy. So guys, this was the first part of the rest of the books that I've read in 2020 that didn't make the best or the worst videos. You wanna know? Comment down below if you read any of these. If you are excited for the second part, I'll post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and sometimes on Saturday. So I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye!